What needs to happen for Wisconsin in 2025, and what record does Luke Fickell need to ensure his reign continues in Madison? So hottest seat is on Luke Fickell. His 2-year record is 12-13. I went over this last week, but his 3 prior predecessors, so Paul Christ, Gary Anderson, and Brett Bielema, those were the 3 prior coaches. In their first 2 years, if you combine all their 2-year records, 61-18. So those 3 guys were winning at a 77% clip in their first 2 years, and Fickell's under 500. I mean, I give him a D-. Maybe he should get an F so far for what he's done. I think he only gets a D- maybe because his recruiting's been pretty good, to be frank.
I said with Luke Fickell, I said, first year, I don't put so much on him. You lose your quarterback, and you find out your backup wasn't very good. That stinks, but you know what? You can correct from there. I put the second year on him more because he knew his backup quarterback wasn't very good. He trotted another new starter out there and kept his backup quarterback the same. I get it. Like you hope your quarterback doesn't get hurt. But thankfully this year it seems like he's learned his lesson, right? Like he's got Danny O'Neal in addition to Billy Edwards, but I don't know. Like, is Danny O'Neal better than Braden Locke? I think so. But it just
Yeah. Let's do
yeah.
a little comparison here. So the Phil Longo experience, we're going to do the air raid. That was an utter failure. I didn't mind the idea, though. Let's try something different. But once it he should have pulled the plug a little bit earlier. But I really expect, Grimes came from Kansas, so they're going to reestablish what I call Badger football. Strong running game that will also help out the defense. So let me show you some stats here. Back in 2021, so this is 3 years ago, so really 2 years before Fickell came on board. But Wisconsin averaged 211 rushing yards a game in 2021. That's second in the Big Ten. Their defense gave up 241 yards a game, first in the Big Ten. Now, it was helped by the Big Ten West schedule. That there's not offensive juggernauts in the Big Ten West as we all recollect, but still just complementary football, like strong rushing game, control the clock, keeps your defense off the field. They can stay fresh and really wreak havoc, which they did. Now, 2024, most recent year, 154 yards per game rushing. That's 8th in the Big Ten. Basically, they were an average Big Ten rushing offense, right? Their defense gave up 343 yards per game. That's 12th in the Big Ten. Basically, over 100 yards more per game under Fickell in his second year. So the air raid's been a disaster, not just from an offensive perspective, but its impact on the defense, right? The defense goes back on the field faster when you're not running the ball and controlling the clock. And in fact, this past year, Wisconsin averaged 23.5 points. That's their worst since 2004. So their worst offense, really, points-wise, in 20 years, right? By the way, Kansas, so with this new Jeff Graham's got Kansas last year averaged 212 rushing yards a game. That's right in line where Wisconsin was 3 years ago, right? And that was 12th in the nation. So you can expect Badger football this year for sure. The problem is, the brutal schedule. So, and the other thing is they still need an effective passing game. So Billy Edwards Jr., as we all probably know, transfer from Maryland, had some good success there. 3,300 yards passing, 19 TDs, 10 touchdowns or 10 interceptions. Not the greatest greatest ratio, but they can't be one-dimensional, right? To beat the top teams or the upper echelon teams, you need to do more than just run the ball. It needs to be supplement with the play action, right? So the wide receivers need to step up. This is similar to Penn State. Vinny Anthony will be the number one option. He had 39 catches for 672 yards. They have a slot, Trek Kekahuna, a host of transfers, including Jaden Ballard from OSU. Whatever needs to happen, they need to have some reliable receivers downfield, just that threat of passing so that the better opponents just can't say we're going to shut down the running game and then we beat Wisconsin. I'm saying
And they have the offensive line to do it. They had a
yeah.
really good pass blocking offensive line. The run blocking at times left a little bit to be desired, but I think that was more scheme than offensive line. So they have the offensive line to do it. Just to your point, those wide receivers need to step up and be the playmakers
But
that are able to get open for the guys, right?
and I watched a few games and they're literally dropping passes. That Will Paulding guy who had a good year 2 years ago and this year, and he was just dropping balls and he's
Yeah.
transferring to Notre Dame, maybe a confidence issue, like a new change of scenery. It was weird. I mean, they were getting poor quarterback play, and when the guy would make good passes, they were dropping the ball. It was
Yeah.
incredible, very frustrating. You know, I do, given the schedule, Wisconsin's realistic. If you say we're going to get rid of Fickell, it always, and it's true of anyone. Like when they're saying fire Ryan Day, I'm like, okay, well, who are you going to get? So you better think about who you're going to get before you fire a guy. It's kind of the same with Wisconsin, right? I think they really do believe in Fickell. They believe that he tried something unusual to make them take the next step. It didn't work. He won't get a second chance again, but I do expect them to be better. You just won't see it in a record this year. If they go 7-5, he's safe. Even 6-6, if they still look good in their big games, I would, as long as it looks like they're doing well, recruiting remains strong. I think he's okay because again, what are they going to do? Who are they going to hire if he doesn't work, right? So that's what I got, JR. Any other comments on the Badgers?
No, I just, I brought Rajiv on one of my shows, and we were talking
Yeah.
about the offensive coordinator situation. Rajiv over at the Bucky Report, if you want a Wisconsin content, he does a great job. Him and Justin. But yeah, he was just telling me that they really like Luke Fickell there, and they believe in Luke Fickell. But the fact of the matter is, if he doesn't produce, they're gonna have to move on because they moved on from Paul Christ, who was somewhat producing, but it wasn't enough. Well, if you can't produce at all, Wisconsin's too proud of a football program to just be okay with 2 seasons in a row of not going to bowl games.
Yeah.
So, and they had the longest bowl game streak, and Luke Fickell ended it last
Yeah.
year. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for Luke Fickell. We'll see what he can do this year, but it's really not looking good. I think Wisconsin fans will be happy if they make a bowl and they'll give him another year. But if he goes 5-7, 4-8, or if this season starts off really, really poor, which it could, that out of conference is not easy. It's not going to be good for him.
It's crazy that my last two questions basically are all about coaches, what they need to do to keep their jobs, and those were the two latest home run hires in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah,
Lincoln
and that's the thing
Riley.
too is Lincoln Riley. He's not losing his job anytime soon because of that buyout. As
No,
much as he
yeah,
he probably should
two
if
different
things don't go
reasons for why
well.
they want
Yeah,
to keep coaches, right? Yeah, Lincoln
exactly,
Riley, and I think
exactly.
USC still believes Lincoln Riley can win big at USC. I do think they believe that still, right? I
I
mean,
think the recruiting changes and stuff like that will help too. Yeah.